Welcome to Chapter 6 of my presentation of my book, Secret Society of the Shamans. I'm skipping Chapter 5 because it would be simply a rehash of other videos that I already have on here. It dealt with the Maquamosa and the bear walker in the northeast Michigan woodlands. So I'm going to skip past that because the information is already on other videos of mine. Chapter 6 is called Holy Smoke and Sacred Pipes. There is nothing comparable to the feeling that you get when sinking your hands into the rich, moist soils of Mother Earth and extracting an ancient relic. It is much as though she is presenting you with a gift that is both precious and rare. You never know what is hidden just beneath her surface. It was in the autumn of 1990 when I was digging at my old Vanetton Creek village site. There was a crispness in the air, which combined with the fresh pine scent of the woods, it made me feel invigorated and alive. This particular day, Mother Earth was very good to me, for she gave me a prehistoric smoking pipe from the late woodland period. This pipe is approximately 1,300 years old. Many people have pierced the flesh of Mother Earth at this spot I call Vanetton Creek, and many have found bits and pieces left behind by the Indians who once lived on these lands. It seems, however, that she saves special gifts, like the pipe, for those who really care. Not far from where my pipe was extracted, but several years apart, my dear friends in archaeology, Bill and Sarah Thurman, were also given a late woodland pipe. I'm going to interrupt my reading of my book here. I don't know how I could have called these people my dear friends in archaeology. These were people who were manipulative and who actually planted stuff to find and make themselves somehow look better by having done so. So they were not dear friends. But at this particular time, I thought perhaps they were. Anyways, these pipes are objects of simplicity upon initial inspection. Your respect grows as you come to learn how they were made. But it quadruples when you learn what the pipe, smoke, and tobacco meant spiritually to the Indians. Even before my recent conversations with Little Beaver, a local medicine man, shaman, I was struck by the roundness of the pipe. I wondered of the significance, if any, of this. In telling of the pipe, Little Beaver explained to me about the symbolism connected with the roundness of things in the native world. He said, "Everything is round to us. It is not square." Lame Deer said that square is a symbol for white man, and this is true. Look, our traditional homes were round. When we dance in private or in powwow, as you saw recently, the dancing was done in a circle, round. The motion of the sun and the earth is circle, and all the planets. Life itself is nothing but circles, a bunch of them linked together. Many believe there are 4 circles or ages, as you would call them. There is much talk today about the year 2000, the end of things, about your Jesus returning. I believe this is the end of the 4th age of man." End quote. Then Little Beaver began to explain about the roundness of the pipe. "Look at our pipe, for it is awesome. It is spiritual, it is alive, and the red stone carries in it our blood." He continued, "The pipe connects us to the Great Spirit. The wooden stem is that connecting link. White man just plugs some unnatural mixture of tobacco and scents into his pipe bowl and gives it no thought at all. To me, all things are represented by the very grains of the tobacco. In the process of using the pipe, the power of the 6 directions and all wisdom of all things is represented. To me, to us, when the pipe is filled, we are at the center of the universe, where the pipe becomes the universe. You see, through the pipe, all this which is our universe is gathered unto us. In your terms, it makes us more holy. We become united with the wisdom of the Great Spirit." End quote. Little Beaver's words were filled with forcefulness and conviction, through which he tried to convey to me a different background how really important the pipe is. Throughout the religious and social life of the Indian, back into the mists of prehistory, the pipe and the tobacco has been his main companion and friend. Excuse me. To many, it remains so today. Let me tell you a little bit about how the pipes were made and cared for. To do this, let's first return to the pipes that I found and the one that the Thurmans planted and said they found. These pipes were made from clay, from the earth at an outcropping not far from the village site. These pipes may have been for social smoking. I feel they had a combined usage. The treatment used for making the pipes, though, was different than for making pots. which were made of the same material. Once the clay was dug from the ground, it was loaded into baskets and then transported back to the village. There it was laid out on woven reed mats or tanned hides, and it was pulverized. Next, all impurities were removed from the clay, as anything that was not supposed to be there could cause problems when the pipe was fired. Finally, crushed rock or shell was then kneaded into the clay. This tempering agent acted to bind the clay and to make it stronger after the firing process. Now, the pots of the late woodland period all have very rough surfaces. They were nicely made, and around the neck and rim there was a high degree of geometric decoration, but the body of the pot was rough. The pipe, however, was smoothed very nicely and appears to have had a slip of some sort added to it before firing. Both examples seem to have been highly polished after firing. Bill and Sarah's pipe even had woven cord wrapped around the bowl, leaving a decorative impression. The point is that nothing came easy to these people of the woods and plains. They took extreme caution in protecting these pipes, sometimes even mending them with their own blood. In his book, Indians of the Great Lakes, W. Vernon Kinnett spoke of these bloody repairs. He said, and I quote, "To render themselves more supple and agile in running and to purge pus from swollen parts, the Hurons made incisions and cuts with small sharp stones into the fat of their legs. With these stones they also drew blood from their arms for the purposes of joining and sticking together broken pieces of their pipes or earthenware tobacco burning tubes. This is an excellent discovery, and a secret that is much more admirable, as the pieces glued with this blood are afterward stronger than they were even before." End quote. The manufacture of the medicine pipe is truly a special act of drawing man and nature together. Depending on which tribe you are speaking of, the pipe stem must be made of a specific wood, generally the wood of the ash tree. Little Beaver told that it should be a long straight limb cut to a length of about 20 inches. At one end, using a stone drill or a bone awl, a hole is drilled into the soft pith. Little Beaver then revealed the secret of getting a straight hole all the way through the length of the stick. He explained, and I quote, "You find yourself a small wood boring grub. They are all around in dead decaying wood, and then you put him into the hole that was started in the stem. Next you cut off a small piece of twig and plug the hole right up. You hang this over a fire with the plugged end down. The grub wants to escape the heat, so bores his way through the soft pitch to the other end and hollows out the stem. Remember, he has done you a favor, and you let him go when his work is done, giving him a little thanks for the help." End quote. Pretty cool. Little Beaver's medicine pipe is made of catlinite, which he claims to have picked up at a quarry in Minnesota. He speaks proudly of the place and the legends which surround it. He explained that Gitchimanitu, the Great Spirit, had given to his race the very first medicine pipe. There were great battles fought at the Father of Waters, where much Indian blood was spilt, and where this quarry is. Our blood colored those sacred rocks crimson red. It was Gitchimanitu himself who, being angered at us, as a father would be with swaddling children, commanded that for all time that place should be neutral. After that, even tribes that were the most vile of enemies could go to the quarry in safe to take the pipestone for their medicine pipes." End quote. Little Beaver's pipe was made in the traditional manner, after the old ways. With a knife of chert, the general shape of the pipe was carved into the catlinite. When the catlinite is first taken from the ground, it is quite soft and easy to work, and it remains that way as long as the stone is kept moist. But upon exposure to the air, the sacred stone becomes very hard. Little Beaver continued, and I quote, "I used a pump drill after the ones my forefathers used, and I made a straight hole down into the pipe bowl, and then another one at the other end of the bowl until they came together. I sanded down the edges and polished my pipe bowl using water and sandstone." End quote. Next, Little Beaver described the process of decorating the pipe stem. This was a matter of great importance also, for not just any decorations could be applied to something so sacred as the medicine pipe. He explained that, and again I quote, "Some people use porcupine quills that have been dyed colors, and they wrap these around the stem near the mouthpiece. The porcupine quills placed there represent powerful magic." End quote. In old times, and among those who keep to every detail of sacred tradition, the tobacco for the medicine pipe needed to be cut on a special board, Great care needed to be taken so as not to offend the Great Spirit, for if even a grain fell upon Mother Earth, he might mistakenly feel she had been given the first offering. Grey Wolf, in his book, The Indian's Secret World, spoke of those things which must be done before even filling the pipe bowl. He said, and I quote, "A small pinch should be held up as an offering to the Great Spirit. The next pinch must be laid down as an offering to Mother Earth. Then offerings would be extended to the north, south, east, and west, always starting with the east, for from the east comes light and wisdom. With each offering, a prayer would be said. The pipe must be lit by placing a coal from the fire on top of the tobacco rather than using a burning twig, which would tend to blacken the bowl." End quote. Now the pipe was used in many, many ceremonies, and there were specific rules to follow. For example, in sacred council, the ritual of filling the pipe, as described by Grey Wolf, must be adhered to. It was then always passed to the person on your left and traveling in the direction of the sun. The stem must always be pointing toward the teepee wall, as in a lodge ceremony, the teepee represents the universe, and outside the lodge, the world itself represents Gitche Manitou, who is everywhere. The pipe can never, ever pass the door. When it reaches the individual closest to the entrance, the pipe is passed back around the circle, unsmoked, until it reaches the person seated nearest the door. Great and mystical prayers are offered up during this time, prayers contained within the living pipe. In passing the door, the prayers might escape. After the smoking has been completed, then the pipe is stood against a brace, and the stem is pointed toward the heavens, and the bowl resting on the ground. In this way, the pipe again is a connecting link between heaven and earth. It is important, Little Beaver told me, to remember always that to smoke the pipe is to pray, for in a very real way, it is your altar. In Mystic Warriors of the Plains, Thomas E. Mills aptly described how the pipe symbolized oneness. He said, and I quote, "As he filled the pipe, the leader called upon the Great Spirit to behold it, adding that the smoke from the tobacco would cover everything upon the earth and even reach to the heavens. He would then ask that the nation's people would be the smoke. The pipe smoke was the bearer of a heaven-sent voice, and all the wildlife and the 6 directions joined in the smokers sending it. This showed that the Indians were thinking of the soul and death, and was a sure sign they were humiliating themselves before the Great Spirit, since they knew they were as dust before him who was everything and all-powerful." End quote. Tobacco was heavily cultivated by late woodland tribes of the Northeast and, on a lesser degree, by the Indians of the Plains. It is interesting to note what this sacred mixture was composed of. The tobacco was mixed with many other things, such as sumac, the dried bark from the red alder, red willow, and dogwood. This special blend was called kinnikinnick. Remarkably, and perhaps attesting to its spiritual holiness, the mixture has none of the harmful effects of the smoke currently consumed by a cancer-infested public. The peace pipe or calumet seems as though it had a universal adaptation to the Indian tribes throughout North America. The calumet may have seen its most noble usage in the Northeast, where a ceremony called the Calumet Dance was performed. The purpose of the Calumet Dance was to strengthen in peacetime and for uniting in wartime, and it was also for public rejoicing as well as to ensure a prosperous voyage. This ceremony was also known as the Spirit Dance. The dancing was done to honor the calumet. Words used in this song interconnected with the dance were invocations to the spirit world. It is also known that this dance was used to call the souls of those who battle was to be waged against, thus making certain the combat would be successful. Perhaps the earliest account of the dance was written by Eloise in 1667 as he observed the dance among the Miami Indians. He wrote, "They acknowledge many spirits to whom they offer sacrifice. They practice a kind of dance which they call the dance of the tobacco pipe. It is executed thus. They prepare a great pipe, which they deck with plumes and put in the middle of the room with a sort of veneration. One of the company rises, begins to dance, and then yields his place to another, and this one to a third, and thus they dance in succession, one after another, and not together. One would take this dance for a pantomime ballet, and it is executed to the beating of a drum. The performer makes war in rhythmic time, preparing his arms, attiring himself, running, discovering the foe, raising the cry, slaying the enemy, removing his scalp, and returning home with a cry of victory, and all with astonishing exactness, promptitude, and agility. After they have all danced, one after the other, around the pipe, it is taken and offered to the chief man and the whole assembly, for him to smoke, then to another, and so in succession to all. This ceremony resembles in its significance the French custom of drinking several out of the same glass, but in addition, the pipe is left in the keeping of the most honored man as a sacred trust and a sure pledge of the peace and union that will ever subsist among them as long as they shall remain in that person's hands. One of the Calumet pipe itself, a wonderful description was written in 1670 by Perrault of its use among the Mascoutins. Perrault wrote, and I quote, "The old man held in his hand a calumet of redstone with a long stick at the end. This was ornamented in its whole length with the heads of birds that were flame-colored, and had in the middle a bunch of feathers colored bright red, which resembled a great fan. As soon as he espied the leader of the Frenchmen, he presented to him the calumet on the side next to the sun, and uttered words which are apparently addressed to all the spirits whom those people adore. The old man held it sometimes toward the east and sometimes toward the west, then toward the sun. Now he would stick the end in the ground, and then he would turn the calumet around him, looking at it as if he were trying to point out the whole earth, with expressions which gave the Frenchman to understand that he had compassion to all men. Then he rubbed with his hand Perrault's head, back, legs, and feet, and sometimes his own body. This welcome lasted a long time, during which the old man made a harangue after the fashion of a prayer, all to assure the Frenchman of the joy which all the village felt at his arrival." End quote. The pipe came into play in almost every aspect of Indian life. Its importance cannot be overstated. I am sure I repeat myself when I remind that the pipe was a communicator between God and man, and that the smoke carries prayers from the earth heavenward. The Ottawa Indians used the pipe in a ceremony to ensure good hunting. At a particular point in this ceremony, the man appointed to take care of the tobacco breaks it in two and throws it into the fire. Everyone cries out loud while the tobacco burns and the smoke rises aloft. It found use among the Plains tribes as a sort of spiritual lie detector. If an Indian told a story that sounded somewhat far-fetched, then the shaman would prepare the pipe to see if the truth was being told. The pipestone was painted red, and the pipe was prayed over. It was asked of the Great Spirit that if the man was lying, that his days would be short in number, but if truth was being told, then his life might be quite long. The spiritual discerner was then passed to the man who was invited to smoke from it. However, he was warned by the shaman. He knew that his story had to be sure as the bowl of the pipe and as straight as the hole through the stem, which was bored by that little grub, or that his days were in danger of being numbered. If the pipe was refused, the person was generally looked upon as having not spoken the truth. Medicine pipes that were kept in sacred bundles were considered to have potent powers for healing and bringing good fortune to the people. The supernatural powers of these pipes could only be put into service by their owners, and then only during very solemn ceremony. Then the medicine pipe was wrapped in a bundle, which contained other items necessary for pipe ceremonies. These bundles included such items as rattles and paint. The bundle itself was made of fur. These bundles were hung on the teepee pole above the owner's head. The calumet attained, as stated, its highest degree of ceremonial usage in the Northeast. However, the Blackfoot Indians of the Plains adapted the use of the calumet or medicine pipe. There the pipe evolved into a different form called the thunder pipe, this owing to the fact that the Blackfoot thought the pipes were a divine gift to them of the thunder. These ceremonial pipes were very long, and as very much as 30 to 60 inches in length. Remember, the average medicine pipe was about 20 to 25 inches long. The pipe, as used by the Blackfoot, had red and green stripes and a clump of black hair around the middle. Incredibly, the pipe was also inset with human teeth. One such pipe was reported as being covered with an entire eagle. With the eagle considered very powerful, it is not difficult to understand its use in conjunction with the powerful pipe. In his book, Mystic Warriors of the Plains, Thomas Males commented on the Blackfoot tradition. He said, "The numerous appurtenant pieces in known Blackfoot pipe bundles included the fetus of deer, squirrel, muskrat, mink, and bird skins, necklaces, and many other objects. The owner was expected to open the bundle at the first thunder in the spring when someone had vowed to make the sun dance with the pipe stem. It was also opened when a bundle was to be transferred to a purchaser. Its special benefit was to its owner, giving him wisdom, status, and protection. He was, however, obliged to submit to many fanciful and demanding rules. Examples are that he was only allowed to point with his thumb and could not pick up any object that he found. He had to hold his pipe in a particular way. He must never sit on his bedding. His wife had to make smudge every morning and shift the position of the bundle in fixed sunwise sequence, and under no condition was it to touch the ground. These seemed to be unnecessary customs, yet they kept the owner's mind continually on the bundle and the bundle's purpose. In the Northeast, one such unusual custom applied to the smoking of the medicine pipe was that a man whose wife was pregnant had to abstain from smoking the pipe in council. It was believed that if he did not do this, his wife would not safely deliver her child, and that the later would inevitably die. Many archaeologists today hold the Indian of prehistory and early contact period in a very low esteem. They view him as a pathetic creature who was poor of nature and completely dependent on the whims of his environment. He is pictured as having to scavenge for food and have never attained a high degree of civilization, who even at his cultural pinnacle was still in a barbaric state. Looking at the religious customs and the reverence with which they carried out these, I find this a terrible miscalculation. Francis du Perron penned a letter to his brother in 1639, which gave a less than glowing account of the Huron Indians of the Northeast. But notice that even in this description, as lowly and destitute as it paints them, the ever-present pipe, I quote, "Their only covering is a beaver skin which they wear upon their shoulders in the form of a mantle, shoes and leggings in the winter, and a tobacco pouch behind the back, a pipe in hand, around their necks and arms bead necklaces and bracelets of porcelain. They also suspended these from their ears and around their locks of hair. They greased their hair and their faces, and they also streaked their faces with black and red paint. In dire times, and there were those, by the way, end quote, in dire times, and there were those, as there is with any culture, the pipe was their main social solace. Henry R. Schoolcraft, in his 1851 History of the Indians, said of this, and I quote, let it not be supposed, however, that the Indian's life, while on wintering grounds, is a round of feasting. Quite the contrary. And his feasts are often followed by long and painful fasts. Under all sufferings, the pipe of the hunter is his chief solace, and is the solace often resorted to. Smoking parties are frequently formed when there is a scarcity of food not tending, as might be supposed, to destroy social feelings and render the temper sour. On these occasions, the entertainer sends a message to the effect, "Come smoke with me. I have no food, but we can pass away the evening very well without it." For me, the pipe became very special one day while sitting and talking with Chief John Naganagan. He told me that he had been digging in his backyard and had uncovered 2 clay pipe bowls. He got them out to show me. They were trade pipes, the types used throughout the 1700s and into the 1800s to buy furs and other commodities from the Indians. You could tell that John really loved those pipes. With a large, kind smile playing across his face, Chief Naganagan handed one of the pipes to me and said, "Here, I want you to have this." To me, knowing the background of his people and the sacredness of the pipe, I considered this a true act of genuine friendship between Chief Naganagan and myself. That completes Chapter 6. I hope that you will give a thumbs up, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the remaining chapters of my book, Secret Society of the Shamans, published in 1993 by Global Communications. Thanks for listening. God bless.